able to take notes and all of the amazing things that will be shared today, if you're not able to capture it, you can come back and review that video later, whether it's on our YouTube channel for BDPA Atlanta or via our website, bdpaatlanta.org. So either way, you would be able to go back and review this video as well as others we've done in the past. Welcome to our March Fireside Chat. I am Victor Montgomery, your BDPA Atlanta chapter president. Really excited to have you all here with us today. We have an amazing discussion set up for you. Today, we have the amazing Atobre who will lead this Fireside Chat. Really excited to kick off Women's History Month with Dee Cantrell as our guest of honor. And with that, I would like to say, every day we should celebrate the women in our lives, but definitely during the month of March, we should put forth some extra effort just to appreciate all of the effort, all of the things that they do for us. Maybe we'll be able to touch on it a little bit later in the call, but I contracted COVID-19, not too long ago, and I will tell you, my wife was a soldier through that. If I didn't have her, I don't know how I would have came out on the other side of it, because I had a pretty serious case. But the things that women do for us, sometimes we can take it for granted. So we should definitely take this opportunity to give them their flowers while they can still smell them. So with that, let me just tell you, if you're new to the BDPA family, if you're new to Arch Cause, let me just give you a little background on BDPA. BDPA Atlanta is an organization that kind of focuses on three pillars of technology. One, we focus on our K through 12 STEM. So our goal is to educate and introduce to our youth different technology concepts. One of the mottos of BDPA is from the classroom to the boardroom. So we believe that if we engage students at a young age, when they get to college and they are introduced to that first programming class, they won't be intimidated and they won't be afraid. So we host an 8-month coding program where we're teaching our youth full stack web development as well as mobile development. It's a pretty intense program. It takes a lot of commitment. Shanique and Atobre, both who are on the call today, are two of the leaders of that program. And it's one of our flagship programs. We do a really good job. Typically, we average every year somewhere between the number of 30 to 50 students that participate. So it's really exciting to not only see the growth, but see what the students get engaged in. The second piece is our college program. I like to say you don't know what you don't know. And when we engage our college students, one of our goals is to not only increase their exposure to emerging trends in technology, but to also assist them with that transition into the workforce, whether it's startups, entrepreneurial, or if it's going into corporate America, right? We want them to feel prepared. We want them to understand what they're getting into. And we don't want them to feel intimidated either by going into the workforce. We don't want them to feel like they're missing out or they're lacking knowledge in a particular area. So we host things like resume reviews, mock interviews, as well as allow them to participate in programs that can enhance their technical acumen. The last piece is what we're doing today, which is open to all, is open to our youth as well as to our adult members and friends, is exposing our adult membership and friends to just industry trends or development, right? So today we have, if for any reason you're enjoying this, and you want to become a paid member, BDPA Atlanta is a membership organization. The way that we continue to host on Zoom as well as to engage our students is via donations from corporations as well as membership dues that members pay. If you would like to become a member, you can get that information at bdpaatlanta.org. But with that, I would like to introduce our facilitator for today, Atobre Oj. And I've known Atobre for a little over 6 years now. And Atobre is not only a BDPA Atlanta member, but she's also a scholarship winner uh, from about 7 years ago. Tobre won a mobile app competition in which she received. So when we talk about our benefactor of that program, she originally comes from the BDPA Cincinnati chapter, and Tobre has just done some amazing things already throughout her career. Currently, she leads a program at State Farm Insurance where she is the facilitator, she's the administrator, she's the negotiator of not only finding software applications and platforms, but also teaching those that are within our enterprise software development. So when you think about training over 10,000 employees in IT and Java and various infrastructure platforms, Atobre is responsible for much of that. So I appreciate all of the efforts that she's given to her career thus far, and I can't wait to see what she does on her journey going forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Atobre to administer the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor, for that lovely intro. Um, Tonight we'll be having our fireside chat with Dee Cantrell. Some information about Dee. She was the CIO at Emory Healthcare for 16 years. She has a master's of science in organization development management and a bachelor's of science in nursing. Dee has been received Dee has received numerous recognitions and awards over her career, such as Top 50 Healthcare Leaders by Becker's Hospital Review, Top 10 Women's Leaders in Health IT by Healthcare IT News, the Georgia CIO of the Year by the Georgia CIO Leadership Association twice. And these are just a few. Dee has also established her own CIO consulting practice where she works nationally helping health systems, physician practices, state agencies, and clients with health information technology initiatives, process improvements, operation, analytics, and more. So now we will get into our fireside chat with Dee. So we have some questions that we're going to ask Dee this evening, and then when we get to the end of this list, everyone in the audience has their opportunity to ask questions. So the first question for Dee is, where did you grow up?
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm very honored to be here and having this fireside chat with all of you. And thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you. It's quite exciting to be here and to be celebrating Women's Month, right? So go women, right? So where did I grow up? I grew up actually here in Georgia and near in the Gainesville area. So you could say that I am born and bred Georgia Peach. So I went to high school here at Johnson, and I went to college at Brenau. So I've been pretty tried and true Georgian for my entire life. And I feel like that sometimes those of us who are native Georgians are few and far between these days. But it's been an exciting journey, I have to say, both here in Georgia, watching Georgia grow as well as healthcare in general. And I know I'm just going on multiple tangents here, but what's your next question? Because I could talk forever.
So the next question is like early childhood activities. Are there any that you still continue to this day?
Yeah, actually. So growing up, I read anything I could get my hands on. I loved reading. I loved school, and so I continue to. I read probably. I read every night. Read about a book a week. Some of it is more educational kinds of things, but a lot of it are my favorites, like science fiction and detective mysteries, murder mysteries. Those are my favorite, and those continue to be my favorite. And just sort of talking about interests. So I started as an original Trekkie way back in my grade school days by watching the original Star Trek after school every day. And just, I know, right? And I just grew to love it. I love Nurse Chapel. I think that's where I began to get my interest in healthcare and being a nurse. But most importantly, I had the biggest crush on Captain Kirk forever. I mean, he has been my man. Well, I've had the opportunity actually to meet him several times because I've continued my passion for science fiction by going to Dragon Con here in Atlanta and also Pensacon in Pensacola, Walker Stalker here in Atlanta. So I've had the opportunity to meet, I mean, how many times can you say you've been able to meet your first love, from your TV hero series?
Thank you for that. But I also have an additional question. What is the last book that you read?
Oh, okay. So actually, right now I'm in the middle of reading a British murder detective series. And so, one thing about the whole COVID thing is it's really helped us rely on everything being virtual. And so I was one of those people that had a really hard time, giving up the real book because I loved the feel of the book and I would keep the books because they were like my best friends. Well, during COVID, I made this switch over to Kindle. And so now I'm a voracious reader on Kindle for all things British murder detective series based. And I love PBS and BritBox. And can we say Doctor Who? Oh my God, right? Just fabulous opportunities there from science fiction to murder detectives series. So I don't know, maybe I should have been a detective. But I think, as a CIO, you sort of are a detective a lot of times trying to figure things out, right? And put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Dee, have you ever seen Grantchester?
Oh, yes. Are you kidding?
What a phenomenal show. If you like all of that, like that is your thing right there.
Absolutely. I have binge watched all of Grantchester, as well as Midsummer Murders, Miss Marple, again, I could talk on this like forever. So yes, huge fanatic for British detective series. Showing my geeky side here, y'all.
That's just fine. Thank you. So the next question is, what challenges did you face growing up and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, right? So growing up, so I come from a lower middle class working family, right? So my mom worked in the mill. My dad was a security guard at the prison, and we never had enough money for anything but the basics, right? So we learned to be creative. I watched my parents work hard for everything that we had. So I learned a real sense of responsibility. And while my parents worked, I took care of my sisters. So I learned accountability there. And also, I learned how wonderful people can be, right? The kindness and the charity of others really made me appreciate that when we have the opportunity to give back, it's a blessing to be able to do so. And I think all of those things together, it made me who I am today. And I wouldn't change a thing because it really made me who I am and has allowed me, I hope, to help other people.
Thank you. Did you have a mentor?
I did. Actually, I've had many mentors over my career. And I think that one thing that's important is that there's probably a mentor in every aspect of our lives if we're open to that, right? Because we can learn from each other in so many ways. But I have to tell you, my first mentor, although I didn't know it was a mentor at the time, was my high school counselor at Johnson. She's the one that really, she took an interest in me. She helped guide me. She's the reason that I went into nursing and became a nurse, that then led, into my path of where I am today. And without her taking an interest in me and seeing the potential, I hate to think where I might have ended up. And again, I think it gets back to all of us having the opportunity when we see it to help make a difference for other people and to help give back.
Thank you. What type of advice was given to you?
So I think if I'm thinking about my high school counselor and sort of the conversation around, I don't know what to do with my life or what kind of vocation to go into, she said, follow your passion. What is important to you, and where do you think you can make the biggest difference? And I apologize. My video seems to have stopped. But that's what made me really think about, going back to the original Star Trek thing, and Nurse Chapel, and the difference that being a healthcare professional can make in people's lives, and being able to take care of others and provide, that just really resonated with me, and hence why I moved into looking at nursing as a profession. And really, to me, nursing is not necessarily a career. It's sort of part of who you are. And even as a CIO, that part of me continues to be there and was always there. And I think it's what helped me be a good CIO, knowing, what goes into healthcare from being a candy striper in the hospital at age 14 to moving up into being a nursing assistant at a nursing home, and then into being an RN and a charge nurse, on the floor, helped me know everything, from beginning to end of what it takes within healthcare. And to make a difference. And that helped me, I think, be a good leader.
Thank you. Are you now a mentor for someone?
I like to think so, and I think I am. And I think there's some people that you could ask who probably answer that question better. But yes, there are definitely people along the way that I've seen a lot of potential in, and that I have wanted to take the time to help them grow and develop and to learn and to, and to really see their potential as a leader. And I think, again, from all of our perspectives, that we're probably all a mentor one way or the other with people in our lives.
Thank you. So you kind of explained already, what your transition was like. Can you give us some details around how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So it's sort of an interesting story, right? So as we've talked about, I started in nursing, right? And so I was a charge nurse, then went to become unit director for a surgical unit, and had done a lot of process improvements on my unit, got things running really well, and I was pretty happy with where things were. And then I was asked by the CEO of the hospital if I would be willing to lead a clinical information system implementation. And I told him no. I said, no, I'm pretty happy with what I've been able to do. And I would, like to continue, to focus on my unit and all this kind of stuff. And so he went away, but then 30 days later, he came back and he said, we really think you're the right person for this and really want you to do it. Well, when your CEO comes back the second time and asks you, you're sort of like, well, yeah, I guess I better do this, right? So I did. And it was probably one of the best decisions in my life, besides becoming a nurse, because the wealth of opportunities there, what I've learned, the ability to make a difference in a different way, it's just unbelievable. All of what I was able to experience, and it has been an awesome journey. And and for a lower middle class small town girl, right, to become CIO of one of the largest healthcare academic systems in the country, I mean, it's the American dream. I am an example of the American dream and of what's possible, right? When you work hard and you have focus and you give back to the community, I'm just so blessed to be where I am, and now to be retired, right? Retired from Emory, and I have my own consulting practice, so I get to pick and choose what I do, and just as an example, so I know I talk a lot about being a nurse. Well, let me just say one more thing about being a nurse, is that nurses can do anything. So an example of that is that one of my contracts right now is with Truist. And actually see that one of my colleagues has joined from Truist. Hello, Sarah. And I am providing the service of Senior Information Security Officer for Truist Digital Commerce. I mean, nurses can do anything. You got to be open to those opportunities. And I sort of answered 2 more questions that you didn't ask, didn't I?
You did. It's fine. So, you do have a massive list of accomplishments. So, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
You mean besides being able to meet Captain Kirk? Yes. So one that immediately comes to mind is I had the opportunity and great privilege of being appointed to an Institute of Medicine committee on health information technology and patient safety. And this was commissioned by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health and Human Services. And so being part of providing guidance into the ONC, and the opportunity to move things forward at a national level, it was just so rewarding. And plus, it was pretty interesting being able to see what happens behind the scenes in those committees too. It was quite an experience, and one that I'm very, very thankful for.
Thank you. What surprises you most about your job?
Well, I think that if I talk about what I'm doing right now, so I have a few gigs going on, and each one of them are a little bit different in their own way. But I think what continues to surprise me is the opportunities that you have if you're open to them, to either make a difference, to provide leadership, to showcase, and I'm gonna go on the woman bandwagon right now, but to showcase strong women leadership, right? The opportunities to be able to do that, it's just amazing to me how much opportunity there is out there to do that, no matter what kind of role you're in and what job that you happen to be doing. And I think it's so important, that we as women leaders really embrace who we are, that we stay true to ourselves, no matter what, even in the most difficult situations, because our caring and our commitment, our compassion, those are all components of what make us great leaders. And I believe I've met a few men who have those qualities as well. And a few of them are on this call right now.
Thank you. Where do the great ideas come from within your organization?
So I think they come from a variety of roles and a variety of levels within the organization. But I have to say that I think some of the best ideas really come from the trenches, the people who are in there every day, doing the job that needs to be done, whether it's healthcare, whether it's banking, whether it's some other industry. And I think it's incumbent upon leaders, good leaders, to listen to those voices and to help engage with those voices and help make things happen, improvements, because they're the people who know what will actually be able to make a difference.
Thank you. What advice would you tell your younger self knowing what you know now?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think I would say always listen to your gut instinct, because every time in my life where I have not listened to that gut or to that intuitiveness of myself, right? I have learned lessons, sometimes not very pleasantly, right? But a lot of times you can learn a lot of great things out of hard lessons. But I would say, listen to your instincts and get your master's sooner, because I went back and got my master's later in life. So I do wish I had gotten it earlier in my career.
Thank you. And I would like to say that intuition is a powerful thing.
Yes, ma'am. And I think we as women really have that inherent in us a lot, and using that and knowing that, because not that I'm a Star Trek New Generation kind of girl, but I did watch that. And and those of you who may have watched the Next Generation, New Generation, one of those, there was a character in there called Counselor Troy, right? And she was the empath, right? So I always felt like I was the empath at whatever job that I had, whether that was at Emory or other places, is that I know usually how people are feeling, and using that empathy, that intuitiveness to sort of help navigate difficult times, I think is just a valuable skill set to have and tool to use.
Agreed. So, in your opinion, what do you see as the biggest challenge in the healthcare industry?
Cost continues to sort of spiral, right? And the fragmentation of care is also one of the big challenges, even though there's been a lot of progress that has been tried to be made over the years for really looking at that coordination of care, looking at cost and price transparency, looking at ways we can leverage technologies better in order to help those things. But those continue really to be the biggest challenges, I think, that we face and will continue to face.
Thank you. With that, I have a question from Madhvi, who's online. The question is, what is one thing you would like to see happen in the era of modern healthcare industry?
Well, I'd like to see more integration that actually is integration. And what I mean by that is while we say that we have standards and while we have interfaces and then we have more integration, we still have so many disparate systems in healthcare that are just do not play nicely together or talk the same language. And I think we're making progress toward that. With some of the new Smart on Fire kind of development opportunities and things like that. But it's still just an uphill battle. And part of that is getting the vendor systems really to to want to play nicely together. Some of the regulations, that came out of the High Tech Act and things like that are trying to help that, but it continues. It just continues to be a challenge. I know John can agree with that for sure. And I also would like to see us have a little bit more, even more embracing virtual care. COVID has definitely pushed us in that direction with telemedicine and some of the home monitoring and things like that. But there's just so much more opportunity, I think, for that virtual care aspect. And that's just going to be something I think is going to continue to grow.
You'd like to think that the telecare could maybe help with some of the cost.
Yes, but we got to get our reimbursement models aligned for that, right? And it's starting, but that's a lot of work still in that area. But you're right, John.
Thank you. So off of that, what healthcare IT jobs do you see having the brightest future in the next few years?
So I think that cybersecurity is going to continue to be a hot area. It's only going to grow because the bad actors keep getting smarter and they have more time to figure out and spend on how they get in and do bad things, right? So cybersecurity by far, I think, is going to be one of our top. I also think analytics, artificial intelligence and analytics is also going to continue to be a hot area. And then anything in the virtual technology space, right, as we try to continue to look at expanding that footprint across the world, really.
Thank you. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on today's current events, with everything with the pandemic and the vaccine rolling out.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I actually think, Victor, are you on? Because
Yeah.
okay, yeah, because Victor, you and I were talking, earlier about your experience, and I think if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your experience, I think we can chat some about that.
Definitely. So as I mentioned kind of earlier in the call, a few weeks back, I had a bout with COVID-19. So I tested positive. My wife tested positive, as well as my sister-in-law. My wife was possibly sick for just about half a day. She did, go through the symptoms of losing her taste. My sister-in-law, from what I can tell, she was moving around the entire time. However, in the same household, I was stuck bedridden. So I was in the bed for 7 straight days, sick for about 2.5 weeks. I mean, I'm still recovering somewhat now, but the worst of it was about 2.5 weeks. So the experience I had was very interesting. Body pains, fever, hallucinations. Fortunately, I didn't deal with any respiratory problems, but just being in the bed for that length of days, and as well as being a busybody like me, it was a challenge. But I would say one of the things, especially from a social standpoint, when we think about vaccines and the African American community, we're very hesitant when it comes to being first in line to say, yes, poke me, give me the vaccine, right? We can use many pieces of data, points of reference to help back us up. But one thing that I thought about, because prior to having COVID-19, I was one that was like, hey, give me a year or two before I even think about getting the vaccine. But just considering, I had somewhat severe, but not as severe as others that have to be hospitalized symptoms. After that, I'm like, if I can prevent myself as well as others around me from experiencing the same thing that I did, just by taking a gamble on a vaccine. And then for me personally, I would want to explore that a lot deeper. And I do believe once, I go through my 90-day period of
COVID free, I will go and get the vaccine as well. But I know within our community, it's always a struggle. It's a challenge to trust the government, to trust medications that it seemed like has been rushed to market. But yeah, it definitely was an interesting experience overall.
Yeah, and I'm with you, right? I don't trust the government either, buddy. But I do trust vaccines and the science behind the vaccines. And I think it's just such a powerful story for you to share of your personal experience on that. And the other side too that I think about is I want to protect others, as well. So I want to get the vaccine, if not for myself, but also to protect my family, my friends, and others. And plus, John, I want us to be able to go travel again, right? Get out and do some adventures, and I want to go back to Dragon Con, and just get back to normal, whatever that normal happens to be.
I totally agree.
Do you see along those lines, just about like getting back together, like you're all virtual, I would guess at this point, with your work at Truist right now.
Yes.
Has there been any discussion there about, assuming the vaccine rollout goes pretty well here and things are maybe on an accelerated path? Are people looking to go back into the office and have a re-entry to the office, or is it a hybrid, or has there been no conversation about that yet?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and it's an interesting one. And before I talk about Truist, let me just talk about the health systems, around Georgia and the IT organizations, because the CIOs of the health systems here in Georgia were all pretty close, and so we chat a lot, right? And so as I talk to a lot of my CIO colleagues across Georgia, it's interesting the beginning shift of, while yes, we will go back into the office, but it may be a hybrid approach, or the majority of the IT staff who don't need to be on site will continue to be virtual, to be remote. Because I think organizations are finding that the cost savings, from all the overhead with facilities and power and all that good stuff, they're seeing cost savings with that, and in some cases, increase in productivity. Because I don't know about you guys, but working virtually, I get up immediately, log onto the computer at 6 o'clock in the morning. I start working, and then I find I'm still working. And I'm like, I got to take a break and go walk the dogs or something.
12-minute lunch hour or something, right?
I know, exactly. And I also think that from a company like Truist perspective, they're carefully monitoring the situation, and we get regular updates about, okay, we're thinking about this, or right now they've extended remote work till I think it's the end of April, and then we'll assess again as far as where the vaccine progress has been made, where we are toward herd immunity and that kind of thing. So I do think that organizations, I feel like, are really being more socially conscious around things with what's happened with COVID and everything, and really trying to take those things into consideration. But I do feel like we'll see more virtual work, hybrid situations continuing. At least I hope so.
I hope so too.
I don't miss that commute to downtown.
So in today's world, do you think a degree is needed?
I do. And like I think I mentioned earlier, that part of the advice I would give to my younger self is to go get that graduate degree sooner and not wait so long for it, right? So yes, I do feel like degrees are important. I think it depends just on where your passion is, what you want to get your degree in. Because again, I have a bachelor's in nursing, I have a master's in organizational development, but I'm in IT, and now I'm working in banking. So I mean, it really just you have to be open to the opportunities. Sometimes an opportunity, you don't know it's an opportunity, right?
Piggybacking off of that, let's have a conversation about upskilling. How have you seen or helped people stay current with their skills?
Yeah, so to me, that's always a key thing is continuing to learn and helping others continue to learn. Just for your personal development as well as for your professional development, right? And so I think the other thing that the pandemic has taught us is that we can learn a lot virtually, right? So, I mean, how many of you guys have watched a YouTube video to learn something new, right? I have a friend who, everybody. So I have a friend who just learned new JavaScripting tool, right, on YouTube video. And I have another friend who was learning how to teach yoga. I mean, it's just amazing what you can learn now virtually and online. And I think the key to that is that to be motivated for self-learning. I mean, don't wait for your supervisor or colleague to come to you and say, you need to go take this class. I'm always thinking, what can I learn next? What can I do next? What's interesting that might be exciting to learn something new. So right now I'm learning banking and it's fascinating. And it's really cool because I've been a SunTrust customer like my whole life, right? Even my bank way in the early days got merged into SunTrust. And so I've been a SunTrust customer my whole life. And now I'm on that side of it, seeing how things come together and how things work to provide that customer experience and the technology and everything to now have BB&T and SunTrust come together, as Truist. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty jazzed about it.
Do you get a lot of on the job training, or is it some type of like things you have to do outside of working hours?
So what's interesting is a lot of things I've already learned from healthcare actually port very nicely into banking because we're all very focused on information security, cybersecurity, all of those things, and heavily regulated. So a lot of those kinds of things port very nicely. What I'm learning now, I'm learning pretty much on the job or doing some of the online web training that Truist provides. Just learning sort of the banking lingo and sort of, some of the more operational processing side of banking and things like that. So it's, and it's just fun. Isn't it fun to learn something new, something different? Who knew?
We have a conversation going on in the chat about who do you think is responsible for that employees training?
I'm sorry, who is responsible for employee training?
Whether or not it's on the company or on the individual employee.
Okay, so I think it's both. I think the company, definitely the organization, is accountable for providing appropriate training depending on what your job function is, right, and what industry you're in. But I think it's even more important for the person to feel accountable for their own learning too. I mean, that's why I said, don't wait for somebody to come to you and say, you need to go learn this. Seek it out, go learn for yourself, right? And embrace that opportunity to increase your skill set, to increase your horizon of things, and help other people do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more around work-life balance. So How do you do your work-life balance?
Okay, so I'll have to admit that this is one I've struggled with my entire career, because it's a challenge, right? Because you get so involved, and and I think I'm like a lot of you. I just throw myself 150% into whatever it is that I'm tackling, and it's hard to sometimes make sure that you're finding the time for yourself, for your family, for your dogs. In my case, for my dogs, although I can always make time for them. But it's a struggle. And so particularly as a CIO, I really was challenged with this. And so some of the actions that I took were to try to not check email on weekends. I thought if something's blowing up or there's a crisis, somebody's going to text me, right? So I had a rule: no email on the weekends. And plus, my staff always complained if I was doing emails on Sunday, because they would walk in on Monday and they'd have our inbox full of emails, right? So for their benefit too, as well as mine. That was one thing. And then the other thing is really truly trying to have a time that you stop and that you disconnect each day, right? So whether that's 6 or 7 or 8 or something, along those, is turn it off, spend some time with your family, watch some crappy TV, watch a British murder mystery, have a drink, go to dinner, do something that really separates you from your daily work life, in order to have that balance. I will have to say that since I'm working my retirement jobs now, even though I have multiple ones of them, I have a lot of work-life balance now. I'm enjoying that.
So even though you have multiple jobs, you are pretty stress-free.
Yeah, I really am. And what's nice is because I chose to work these, right? It's my choice, and they're ones that I'm really interested in. I love working at Truist. I love all the people I work with there. It's just a fantastic company to work for. And I'm also doing a little bit of work for the Georgia Health Information Network. And I helped stand up the HIE for the state of Georgia. So that's always been a passion for me. So it's, and I get to, do some advice and counsel for some other consulting companies. And again, it's just nice because I choose what I work on, and it's all things that matter to me and with people I like.
Thank you. Oh, was somebody going to say anything? Okay.
Just asking a fun fact.
Okay.
Sure.
About Dee.
Oh, yeah. She wants a fun fact.
Oh, a fun fact. Oh, wow. I once rode with the Hells Angels in the New York chapter on Hells Angels weekend in Myrtle Beach. This was back in my college days. They were staying next door to the in the hotel where a friend of mine and I were staying, and we got to make friends with them. And one of the leader of the gang, he goes, "Would you like a ride through Myrtle Beach?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" I mean, how many people get to say that, right? I rode with the Hells Angels in New York.
Awesome. And very unassuming. So.
Pardon me?
I said very unassuming fun fact.
Well, that's one of my, that's probably a good and bad quality that I have is I'm very transparent, sometimes to a fault, and sometimes that gets me in trouble, particularly in a very, political environment, because I always err on the side of transparency with my staff and with my colleagues and with my, with anybody that I work with or that I come across in my personal life. And that's not always very welcome. Just saying.
I understand. What does leadership mean to you, and why do employees follow leaders?
Yeah, so leadership to me means being one of the team. It means leading by example. It means helping to influence in the right direction because you have somebody's trust and respect. It means not asking someone to do something that you wouldn't try to do yourself. It means not seeing levels or roles, right? It means seeing people as people and what qualities they bring to the table and understanding how to leverage those qualities and those skill sets to achieve the outcome at hand. And I think that's the kind of leader that people will willingly follow. Unfortunately, in our, in society today, in organizations, particularly very top-heavy organizations, there is a lot of leadership by fear. I mean, do this or else kind of thing. And while fear is a short-term motivator, it doesn't last in the long term, and you lose your people because if people aren't happy, they're not going to stay, and they will be disengaged. And it's it just makes for an unhappy situation. And gang, how much time do we stay at work, right? Now we're virtually working, but we spend most of our waking hours at work or with our work colleagues. We should enjoy that time. I mean, doesn't mean we don't work hard, but we need to appreciate and enjoy each other and where we are. And for God's sake, let's make sure we have a sense of humor. There's so much so much humor that could be leveraged in so many ways, right? Not taking ourselves too seriously or too significantly. And I have to tell you, that's probably one of my pet peeves. Here's another fun fact. But one of my pet peeves is people who take themselves too significantly. Right. And so it's always one of those, always enjoyed meetings where and in most cases, I was only female, right? And everybody's very significant in these meetings, right? And so, and just being me, I would try to bring some humor in the situation, right? And try to get people to loosen up and actually really just sort of talk and connect a little bit more on a human level so that we could move things forward together. So that's one of my favorite things to do, I think.
Thank you. So that kind of leads us into the next question about your leadership style and what influences it.
Yeah, and I think, so we've talked a bit about that, right? So I would say collaborative, team-oriented, and like I said, I'd never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't try to do myself or have done myself. And I always see myself as part of the team and working hand in hand with the staff or with my colleagues or with my bosses, getting in there together and really making things happen. That's what's important.
Thank you. So to close out this fireside chat before we open it up to the audience, I would like to say women should be celebrated every day. But curious to know, who are some of the women that influenced you, helped you in your career, and that you consider to be a role model?
Yeah, and so we've talked a little bit, we touched on that a little bit. So immediately my high school counselor, right, that we talked about comes to mind. She was my very first mentor and probably made the biggest impact on my life. But in addition to that, over time, I have to tell you that my CIO colleagues have really made a big difference in my life. We learn from each other. We help each other. My colleagues on the Georgia HIMSS board, that's the Health Information Management System Society, the Georgia chapter. I've been on the board there for a while, and my colleagues there just blessed my life in so many ways, and it was just so rewarding to be a part of that group and continue to be a part of that group. I had nursing instructor that just was fabulous, that helped me along the way. And also I worked for a director of nursing who really helped facilitate my profession into informatics. I mean, I'm just lucky. I'm blessed in so many ways, and I'm very thankful for it.
Thank you so much for that. So now we're going to open it up to the audience. If you have any questions, feel free to take yourself off mute and ask, or you can put your questions in the chat.
I won't be shy, and I'm sorry, I took myself off mute a couple of times at Tobre. Sorry about that. It's hard for me to be quiet, but I do have a couple of questions, and I'll start off just by saying, Dee, thank you again so much for being with us this evening. So you've had such an awesome career, and it's great to have you share your experiences with us. So thank you again from all of us. So do you think all of the years in nursing that you had, from the beginning of that to the end of that, did you become a more empathetic person or a less empathetic person, or flatline?
Wow, that's a very interesting question, John. And first of all, also thank you. It's been my pleasure, my deep pleasure, to be here and to share with you guys. I think it made me a more empathetic person, because I mean, you see people at their worst, right? When they're suffering from whether pain or cancer or COPD, because I have to tell you that probably the most difficult patients to take care of for me were my COPD patients, because you can't do much for them. You can't really increase the oxygen any higher, and they can't breathe. And there were many a time that all I could do was sit at the bedside and hold their hand, just to be there with them. And I think when you experience things like that, it makes you a more empathetic person. It makes you a better person. It makes you want to help others more.
That's awesome to hear. So my second question is more technology based. So what you talked about, and I experienced working with you at Emory all those years and helping you find resources there, that there's a gazillion disparate systems within the healthcare environment. Mm-hmm. So I know that was a pain point for you, like getting those things integrated. So when Atobre asked, like, what do you see as like the bright spots for technology positions in healthcare, I thought for sure you were going to talk about like integration. So people that would be able to integrate these systems with one another. So I'm assuming that there is a void there. There is an opportunity there. So how would those integrations, like what type of skill set is best for those integrations? If that is a void, that is an opportunity, a good path for someone. Because I think within BDPA, there's a lot of app dev centric work that's being done, and we're trying to help with that. So that could be helpful in knowing, like, hey, should I learn Python? Should I know Java? Or how am I going to integrate these systems?
Yep. And that was probably my post-traumatic syndrome kicking in, of trying to avoid talking about integration at all cost. But yes, and even in the jobs that I mentioned, like analytics and some of that kind of stuff, inherent within all of that is the capability to integrate systems, right? Because you can't make anything happen without that happening, either on the front end or on the back end. And so yes, integration continues to be a sweet spot. And I think the skills that are important from that standpoint are the things that you sort of mentioned, right? Java, Python, any SOA, Smart on Fire development, any of those kinds of things are particularly Smart on Fire moving forward in all of the web development, because most of these legacy systems at this point, we're just sort of putting lipstick on a pig with most of those, right? And so you're going to have to, at some point, we've got to really look at the redevelopment of those things, or creating these wrappers around them that allows that integration to happen. So yeah, absolutely. But again, I try to forget those days. Thanks for bringing it up, John.
Sorry.
Do you have a question in terms of innovation, right? And unfortunately, I want to take you back to your old days drawing board, but now that you have Truist, right? And from a patient-centered world, consumer, everybody's trying to address consumerism and patient at the center of care and patient-centered care, if you will. And I personally feel, out of a personal experience that I went through 3 years ago, if either of the pillars get impacted, whether it's your health or a finance impact, life is not happy. It's not in a green place, right? And they are both interconnected. This is a far out vision, but if we were to have something like that, and because breaking through systems of Epic and Cerner, which are our grandfathers and grandmothers of the system and very difficult to work with,
yes,
if there was an angle of a patient-centered care integration opportunity, do you think government is the right approach to influence that, or is it the hospital systems? Because I think leaders can make it happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And, I love this question. So I am not a fan of government forcing or doing anything for us, right? So I would say, normally, I would say no, but we did see progress when the HITECH Act came out and for meaningful use. I mean, we saw progress. Some of it wasn't very good, right? But we did see progress. So regulations did help from a priority focus standpoint, but I don't think that's not the right way to do it, right? And I agree. I think I think leadership can make a huge difference in that. I think that we struggle with being able to influence those vendors, right? But that's why I think sometimes we have to look at, perhaps there's things that we can do ourselves from a development standpoint around those legacy applications, right? So that we're masters of our own destiny and not reliant on some of the legacy vendors that we have in our space.
And do you believe in breaking the glass ceiling for that?
I do. Mm-hmm. Do you?
I do. I do, and I started an entrepreneur venture. I'd love to connect with you.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'd love to chat.
We're well on our way to launch it in the next month on Apple Store.
Oh, exciting. You go, girl. Yeah.
Thank you.
So as we're in the vein of discussing breaking the glass ceiling, a kind of a two-part question. You mentioned that there have been times where you're the only woman in the room, especially, sitting in your seat of leadership. So what advice can you give to men that are sitting in rooms where there's only one or a few women present? And what advice will you give to women that is that one person in the room?
Yeah, so let me start with the one female in the room part first. So don't try to be a man. Because that male energy, that comes naturally from a male perspective. But as a female, I mean, stay true to who you are, stay true to your female energy, to your intuition, and leverage that in the interactions with your male counterparts. Speak with a firm voice, and be heard. And then on the other side of that, for the male colleagues in the room, I would say, listen. Do active listening. Victor, you're nodding. Did you learn that at home too? Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. It was really driven into me.
So funny. but really, I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges I had in my career at Emory is being, I had a voice, but being heard sometimes took a lot of work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for our guests that's joining us for the first time today, we definitely invite you to engage. We don't have the opportunities to come together in person right now. So for many of us, this is the closest we get to engaging another person outside of our household. So definitely contribute to the conversation if you have a question. As I mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, Dee said she's open to answering anything that she can answer. So definitely jump on in, and if you have a question, feel free to ask. I always have many things to share and ask. So if it's too quiet for too long, I'll always jump in.
Yeah, actually, I have a quick question, if that's okay. Give a quick introduction. My name is Francisco Nunez. I actually grew up throughout BDPA pretty much, and since probably the age of 11. And I appreciate you, Victor, for inviting me on the call. But Dee, first off, I just wanted to say that I think a lot of the dialogue has been very insightful and informative, and just very helpful in a lot of different ways. I guess a question that I have is not necessarily for me specifically, but I think a relevant question for technologists, and I think aspiring technologists during this unique time. What advice would you give to people that either have a professional background in technology, want to get into programming, coding, and technology, and are in the market for looking for opportunities during a time like this? What advice would you have for that type of person?
Yeah, that's awesome question. So I think that that particularly during the past year and this year, right? We've so far, it's been a bit of a challenge with everything sort of being on hiatus. A lot of projects were on hold, and organizations were trying to relook at their budget and funding with the whole COVID impact and everything. But I do feel like that's lightening up. I'm beginning to hear more opportunities out there, from the standpoint of projects starting back up and things like that. And I would say, keep active on LinkedIn. Look for opportunities to connect with others, either virtually or, LinkedIn is always a good one. I actually love it. I stay on it. Although I haven't had as much time to do blogging lately as I usually do. But also, check out other professional organizations that you can network with as well, like Georgia HIMSS, and I'll mention TAG, although I'll have to tell you that as a CIO of a health system I was sort of traumatized at some of the TAG events because there's just a lot of vendors. And I once got followed into the bathroom by a vendor trying to talk to me to want to sell me something. And I would just say that if you're looking for a job or you're a vendor out there trying to sell something, please please be courteous and how you interact. And you gotta make contacts, and you need to push sometimes, but don't follow people into the bathroom, especially right at an event.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah. Actually, the funny thing is that one of my colleagues on the Georgia Hymns board actually had come in there with me, and she actually intercepted the person and sort of redirected them. So that helps. So another reason why I love my Georgia Hymns people, they always protected me.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Dee.
Yes.
My name is Morgan, and first I would like to say thank you so much for just providing this great conversation. It's been really great. And my question to you is, I heard you mention a couple of times as far as you said you wish you would have gotten your master's early, and you would encourage someone else to do that as well. How long would you say for someone to wait until they get their master's?
I wish that I had gone ahead after my bachelor's and went ahead and went on into grad school and gotten it then. But I think it's an individual kind of thing too, depending on what you have going on in your life. And as I look back on it, I mean, I got great work experience. Immediately going from bachelor's and into the workforce. But I didn't go back for my master's until I was probably 10 years at Emory when I went back for my master's. So it would have been, I would have liked to have done it sooner, but in hindsight, I guess, things work out the way they're intended to. When do you think? Just out of curiosity, what's your thought on that?
Personally, I was planning on getting some work experience first and then going back. So about 2 to 3 years. I've heard 5 years actually is what's preferred and what's average. But that was my take. I've heard some people just jump right into it because they don't want to take that break, or they'll end up not going back at all.
Yeah,
but I did see value in getting some work real life experience so that I can apply the two.
I think that makes a lot of sense too. I definitely see that side of it. I think it is a very much an individual kind of where you are in your life and in your career kind of decision, right?
Thank you so much for that, Dee.
Thank you.
Dee, being a leader of leaders in the IT field, what's some advice you can give to us budding leaders, to help us from derailing our career?
Wow. Okay. Let me think about that one. So I think I would say you have to feel out organizational politics of wherever it is you happen to be, right? Not necessarily to be ingrained in the politics, but to be aware of what they are and how to navigate through those waters without getting your leg blown off in a minefield, right? But it's because all organizations have politics, large, small, medium size, and understanding that organizational culture and the politics associated with that it just helps you, I think, understand how to be effective and successful in the environment.
Thank you.
We have a question in the chat. So Dee, how is cloud affecting your organization? What cloud provider are you all using?
Yeah, so I think that has definitely been a sea change, I think, in a lot of ways for organizations. And definitely at Truist, the move toward cloud services as we become Truist is first and foremost with moving all that infrastructure and all the workload and services there. And also when I was at Emory, one of the initiatives I did there was beginning that process of migrating some of those more disparate systems over to cloud services as well. So I think that I think most organizations are probably a little bit in a hybrid mode, but moving that direction to be almost fully, right, cloud services kind of thing. And so typically, so we use a lot of AWS at Truist, Azure, some Azure as well. And so I think that's where you'll see most companies now also working with some other companies with Google, using some of the Google services. And so it's a plethora of things out there right now, but I definitely see AWS and Azure being a couple of the leading ones. Okay, you guys are too quiet now.
Yeah, I
get to pick on you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you. So from your beginning in technology to today, what has been the biggest shift or biggest change in technology? So not necessarily directed at your work, but just in general, cell phone, rotary phone, it doesn't matter. So biggest shift in technology. And then how does social media play a role in what you do daily?
I definitely think the phone, the cell phone, because oh my gosh, I'm going to be showing my age now, but you guys remember those bag car phones? Some of you guys remember those? Oh my Lord.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I thought, that was like the bomb, right? Having those bag car phones kind of thing. And then to now to see where we are with these, oh my God, it's amazing what's happened just in my lifetime relative to this technology. And I mean, gosh, I could do everything on this phone, right? So truly, this is like Star Trek. Do you remember the tricorder and everything?
Yeah, I will say you just used the word the bomb. So I think that aged you as well when you said it was the bomb.
I know.
I don't know, Victor, where's he coming back? So.
Yeah, it was the bomb.
Yeah, but y'all are supposed to say, oh, you don't possibly look that old.
You wanted them to be as candid, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And
I don't think so.
The second
compliment.
Yes. The second part of that, how does social media influence what you do? Because I see it kind of taking my life over at times.
Oh, yeah, right. Especially during the pandemic when I suddenly became very, everything, the LinkedIn came even more important to me, and Facebook, and then Instagram and Twitter. I mean, and it was almost like overload. So I went from being completely inundated, right, and active on all of those to I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. It's too exhausting. And it was always bad news. And I'm like, really? Can we talk about something, good for a change? And so it's really difficult, I think, finding a balance sometimes with that. And it's just amazing to me how the younger generation in particular, right, that are so engrossed in social media and everything. And I think in some ways, I think it's amazing. In other ways, it's a little scary.
Yeah. Their brains move a lot faster than mine.
It's just different, right?
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day about employee annual reviews. Mm-hmm. And are those, like, is that an archaic concept at this point to have an annual employee review? And what would I guess, the alternative is to just have something like a more iterative, agile approach to that. Thoughts on that?
Or we could just, rate people, right? 4 stars, 5 stars, 3 stars, kind of thing. I think there's a movie.
Like it.
But well, I've been hearing that probably most of my career, that the annual employee review is an archaic kind of approach, and over my lifetime, I've seen different kind of approaches to that. And I have to tell you that what I think is most effective is a 360-degree kind of performance review, right? So that you're actually getting a perspective from yourself, from a colleague, from a customer, from a vendor, from your boss, kind of thing. Because somewhere the feedback in between all of those are the tidbits of information that you can really leverage, I think, to decide what you want to work on, and how you want to grow your skill set.
You know what I think would be interesting for everyone to hear, because I admired how you all did this at Emory over the years, was talk about your interview process, and what you looked for in that hiring process, and how that went. And I guess now, like, you have a chance to kind of be retrospective on that. What would you have changed anything with it after being away from it?
Yeah. So actually, I think Emory did a great job with really looking at how the interview process needed to work, and what kind of questions needed to be asked in order to really get down to, will this person and will this skill set be the fit that we need for this particular position or this role. And so Emory adopted the behavioral question kind of approach. I think that most companies are probably doing right now, using the STAR technique, which I can never remember all of what the whole acronyms stand for: situation, task,
actions, and results.
Yep, kind of thing. And asking those kinds of leading questions that actually really let the person answer definitively on what they actually did in that situation, and really getting sort of more granular to it. And so I think Emory did a great job with that. I think that helped our hiring process, so that we got a better fit, and a higher quality, across the board. And I know we really embraced it in the IT department, and I actually had 3 of my directors who got extensive training in the interviewing technique, so that they actually interviewed every candidate that first passed the first wave, and then did a group interview, and then did the targeted selection kind of interview with the directors, and that really helped our process. So I think Emory really did that right.
What's your favorite interview question to ask?
Okay, so I always like to ask the question about, so if you're in a stressful situation, what kinds of actions do you take in order to help alleviate that stressful situation for you personally? How would you answer that, John?
See, that's what makes you so effective. You have a way of like turning these things back around.
I also like to ask just for fun. So what are your hobbies? What are your passions? Right, kind of thing. That's not a behavioral question. That's just a fun question.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're coming right up to the hour. And I think this has been an amazing, amazing fireside chat. Atobre, thank you for facilitating such an awesome discussion. Dee, thank you again for sharing such amazing content that I think our membership and guests will be able to leverage as they continue throughout their journey. Of course, we couldn't do any of this without our sponsors. So thank you to Matrix Resources for your continued partnership, not only with amazing sponsorship of our organization, but the co-hosting of our fireside chats and monthly meetings. We really appreciate everything that you all are bringing to the table. Thank you to State Farm Insurance for your continued support as well. Your support allows us to do many of the things both with our professional groups and our student organizations that we wouldn't be otherwise able to do. So with that, again, I really appreciate the time. I appreciate everyone joining us. And for these final couple of minutes, I'd like to turn it over to Shanika.
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, thanks again, Dee. It's kind of good timing to mention 360 like feedback. I kind of sent out my feedback or request for feedback this week, and one of the things that I added to it is asking people to also include like personal development things that they would be interested in, like just to share with me, because I'd be curious. But for that, we wanted to, again, extend our gratitude for you spending time with us this evening. So we'll be sending this out to you, the certificate of appreciation. So thank you, Dee. And I also dropped some links in our chat. So feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn or other social media. There's also links to our Atlanta chapter page and the national BDPA page. But yeah, if there are no other questions, everyone have a good evening. Thanks again, Dee.
Live long and prosper, my friends.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to conventions coming back too. I'm missing the anime convention.
Oh yeah. Bye.
Bye. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.